Not all great ones start great. Sometimes the most extraordinary are born in anonymity, in the dust, in chaos, in absolute silence. There were no spotlights, no cheering crowds, no applause, no promises. There was just a boy, small, skinny, invisible to the world, but inside him, a flame, a restlessness that not even hunger could extinguish, a strength that not even poverty could break. While many were born into comfort, he was born into cold. While others had toys, he carried bags of bread through the streets. While so many received support, he carried the weight of an entire family on shoulders far too fragile for it. But there's something the world doesn't understand at first. It's not the environment that defines destiny, it's the spirit. Because even in the mud, some seeds know they were born to bloom. Even under the feet of those who ignore them, some stories know that one day the world will notice. And this is not an ordinary story. It's a story of fire, of faith, of discipline. Of someone who, against all odds, planted in the dark and harvested under the lights. This is the journey of a man who came from nothing and became everything, not by magic, but by pattern. The pattern of silent growth, of invisible action, of progress no one sees, until it becomes impossible to ignore. This is the story of Manny Pacquiao, and if you truly listen with your heart, you might just realize it's your story too. In the depths of an island forgotten by progress, where the roads are made of hardened dirt and the houses barely balance on wooden stilts, Emmanuel de Pidron, Pacquiao, was born. Philippines, late 1970s, a country wounded by inequality, where the rich live like kings and the poor survive like ghosts. It was in this setting, far from the spotlight and far from opportunity, that Manny came into the world. No crib, no health insurance, no guarantee of a future, but with something money could never buy: a restless heart. Pacquiao's childhood wasn't made of candy, parties, or toys. It was made of hunger, of calluses, of sleepless nights, of silent promises whispered between one sigh and the next. Still very young, he watched his father walk away from the family, a decision that split both his home and his heart in two. The image of that man leaving was tattooed in the boy's memory like a warning. You're on your own, and now it's your responsibility. His mother, Dionysia, fought with everything she had. She sold what little they owned. She cried in silence. She swallowed fear. And Manny swallowed pain. He sold bread on the streets like he was selling his own time, running between cars with a basket in his hand and dignity in his eyes. Every coin he earned was sacred, because it meant rice on the table or shoes for a sibling. But there were days when even that wasn't possible. Days when he went to sleep with an empty stomach and heavy, tired eyes. And still, he never let himself break. Because constant pain became his armor, and poverty his teacher. She taught him what no school ever will: that no one is coming to save you, that the world owes you nothing, that the only way out is to become the way out. While other boys played, Manny watched. While others complained, Manny planned. Inside him, a fierce desire grew. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change everything. There were no cameras rolling, no audience watching, no pat on the back. But there was action. There was stubborn hope. There was a boy determined to turn misery into mission. He didn't know how. He didn't know when. He just knew that, no matter how long it took, he would make it. There, in the streets of General Santos City, between cracked bricks, patched up clothes, and dry tears on his mother's face, an invisible warrior was being born. Someone who didn't need applause to train. Someone who didn't wait for permission to dream. That boy had nothing, but he was already everything he needed to be. Hunger with direction, pain with purpose, dream with roots. And that, my friend, is the secret formula of every giant. There are moments that change everything. Sometimes it's a word, a look, a sound. For Manny Pacquiao, it was a punch. He was 12 years old when he watched his first professional boxing match on television. Mike Tyson, wild, untamable, victorious. His fists spoke for him. The stadium roared as if witnessing a god in motion. In that instant, young Manny's eyes widened. It wasn't just boxing. It was a code, a secret language for those who suffer in silence, a choreography of pain turned into art, of bleeding. To break free, he didn't know what technique was. He didn't understand the rules, but something inside him, something ancient, violently awakened. This is what I was born to do. From that day on, the world around him began to change. Or maybe it was he who was changing. He began training, alone, improvising. Sacks of rice became weights. Lampposts became targets. Every punch was a swallowed scream. Every early morning run was a silent vow. I won't die poor. I won't die ordinary. At 14, he made the hardest decision of his life. He grabbed a backpack, filled it with almost nothing, said goodbye to his mother, teary-eyed with a quick hug, and left. He ran away from home, not out of cowardice, but out of courage, because he knew if he stayed, he'd sink with everything around him. If he left, maybe he had a chance. He arrived in the capital, Manila, with an empty stomach and a burning soul. He slept on sidewalks, under tarps, in community gyms, ate what he could find, trained wherever he could. And while many gave up for lack of quick results, Manny kept going. Kept going without a steady coach, without sponsors, without any guarantee it would work out. Because deep down, K wasn't training to win. He was training to survive. And that's a difference the world underestimates. At 15, he began to compete. But there was a problem. He was too light for the minimum weight class, so he improvised. He filled his pockets with stones, literally, to meet the weight requirement and be allowed to fight. This isn't symbolic, it's real, and it shows the kind of mindset that already lived inside that boy. He didn't want excuses, and I wanted a chance. And if reality wouldn't accept him as he was, he'd force reality to bend. Every fight was a battlefield. Every round, a chance to prove that even coming from nothing, he carried everything. He fought as if his family's next meal depended on it, because it did. He fought as if his future was on the line, because it was. He fought as if there was no other option, because there wasn't. And with every victory, no matter how small, Manny grew. Not just in strength, but in conviction. Because what was being built there wasn't just a fighter. It was a symbol. A hungry boy turning into a living weapon. There was no glamour, no media coverage. But there was a seed being cultivated in the deepest silence. The seed of greatness. And like all seeds, it doesn't scream. It doesn't shine at first. It simply takes root. In secret, in the dark, in faith. And that's where the law of gestation lives. You plant when no one is watching. You water when no one believes. And you bloom when the world can no longer ignore you. That was the beginning of the legend. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. So he chose to become the light himself. The streets of Manila had no idea. But they were witnessing the birth of something rare. Every training session of Manny Pacquiao, every drop of sweat hitting the cracked floor of the gym, every lonely run at dawn, were like invisible bricks building his future. To those passing by, he was just another poor kid trying to fight. But for anyone looking deeper, a supernatural force was being forged. Something between man and myth. Pacquiao's career began to rise. Victory after victory, he climbed, quiet, focused, unstoppable. And then, 2001. The world had no idea what was coming. But the kid from the streets of the Philippines crossed the ocean. He was called in last minute to face Lelo Ladwaba, the super bantamweight world champion. Few bet on him. He was a replacement, an underdog, a stranger in a foreign land. But in that ring, Pacquiao showed what no one expected: speed, precision, fury, technique, hunger, soul. He defeated the champion with a performance as brutal as it was beautiful. And in that moment, the world paused. Cameras turned, headlines appeared, and the name Pacquiao was written for the first time with respect. But the boy remained the same. Running, training, listening to his mother, praying at night, carrying the weight of a poor nation on his shoulders. And then he accelerated. 2003, defeats Marco Antonio Barrera, a Mexican legend. 2006, avenges his loss to Eric Morales, knocking him out with a fury that seemed to come from the very ground he grew up on. 2008, steps into the ring against Oscar de la Hoya, boxing's golden boy, an icon, and Pacquiao. Pacquiao destroys him. Round after round, he dismantles the legend and makes de la Hoya quit in the 8th round. He didn't just win, he retired a giant. From that point on, the world could no longer ignore him. He was an Asian hurricane, small in frame, giant in impact. 2009. In one of the most electrifying fights in history, Pacquiao knocks out Ricky Hatton with a devastating punch in the 2nd round. The world holds its breath. A cinematic knockout, chilling, the kind that makes crowds erupt. 2010. He does the unthinkable, defeats Antonio Margarito, a much bigger opponent, and wins his 8th world title in his 8th weight division, something no human had ever done. At that moment, there was no more doubt. The boy who once sold bread to survive hunger was now being called the greatest fighter of his generation. But not everything was glamour. With every victory came more pressure, more eyes, more temptation. He was in the US, the Philippines, Japan, all at once. Posters, money, invitations. But deep down, Pacquiao knew, I can't lose the boy who started all of this, because it was his pain that brought me here. And that's why his greatness isn't just in his fists. It's in his consistency. Because even after the fame, even after the millions, he still woke up early, ran, trained, prayed. Even after the world applauded, he could still hear the silence of his childhood. That's rare. That's real greatness. And maybe that's the point many forget. True success isn't explosive. It's cultivated. Slow, silent, relentless. That's why he became a legend. Not just for knocking people out, but for winning with purpose. True victory, the kind that lasts, is born like this: in the dark, in the hidden, in the invisible. It's the law of gestation. You plant with pain, you water with discipline, and you harvest with glory. Not when you want, but when you're ready. Fame. Fame. It seduces, it confuses. It promises what it never delivers. And when it came crashing down on Manny Pacquiao, he believed he was ready. But no one truly is. Not really. The poor boy was now a multi-millionaire. The stages were global. The parties, luxurious. The recognition, worldwide. And with it came the excess, casinos, women, alcohol. A packed schedule. Fake smiles. Temptations disguised as success. On the outside, the undefeated champion. On the inside, a man divided. Training lost its soul. Prayer began to fade. And the emptiness, the kind money can't fill, began to grow. Manny smiled for the cameras, cried in silence. Because something inside him knew. I'm conquering the world, but I'm losing myself. And in that silent abyss, he came face to face with the question that separates champions from the broken. Who am I without the ring? Who am I without the applause? Who am I when the lights go out? The answer didn't come from interviews, didn't come from fans. It came from the soul, from the past. from the barefoot boy who still lived inside him. And so, Manny did something few have the courage to do. He stopped. He looked inward, and he was reborn. He let go of his vices. He abandoned the darkness. He gave himself to faith. He returned to reading the Bible, returned to praying like he did when he had nothing, returned to training like the title was far away, even though it was already his. And for the first time, he understood the true meaning of victory. It's not about defeating others. It's about defeating the worst parts of yourself. Manny became a pastor, became a father, became a role model. Not because he pretended to be perfect, but because he chose transformation. And this is where the pattern of greatness becomes clearest. The true hero isn't the one who never falls. It's the one who, even shattered, rebuilds stronger. He understood that success without purpose is a castle of sand. That discipline without soul is just rigidity. That true glory is using what you've gained to serve, not to show off. The dark night of the soul purified him, forged him once again, and brought forth a Manny Pacquiao, more dangerous, more aware, more complete than he had ever been. He came back, but not as the same man who had left. Not as the hungry young fighter chasing recognition, and not as the star seduced by fame. Manny Pacquiao returned as a complete man, a champion on the outside, a servant on the inside, a warrior with the soul of a messenger. And then, something even greater began to happen. He started using what he had earned, not to elevate himself, but to lift others. He built homes, funded schools, donated food, visited prisons, embraced the sick, inspired millions. That invisible boy from the streets of the Philippines was now the voice of an entire nation. But what impressed people most wasn't his speed, or his titles, or his millions. It was his mindset. I'm not great because of what I've achieved. I'm great because I never forgot where I came from, and because I know exactly where I'm going. True victory, he said, wasn't the belt. It was keeping your heart pure in a world that corrupts. He chose to live what few have the courage to live, a life of purpose, of clarity, of service. This is the code, the invisible formula that moves giants. The secret behind visible miracles. And no, it has nothing to do with luck, nor with exceptional talent, nor with magical opportunities. It has to do with planting, with process, with patience, because true success follows an unchanging law. The law of gestation: you plant in the dark. While no one is watching, you water with sweat. While everyone doubts, you wait with faith. While the world mocks, and one day, without warning, you bloom. And when that happens, the world calls it a miracle. But you know, it was discipline, it was sacrifice, it was intentional. Manny Pacquiao didn't win by accident. He won because he built. Step by step, punch by punch, day after day. And that, my friend, you can do too. Because it doesn't matter where you were born. What matters is what you're nurturing in silence. Every morning, every ignored effort, every unfilmed sacrifice. Victory begins where no one is looking. It begins within, in the invisible, in the root. And when it blooms, it's unstoppable. We've reached the moment where everything is revealed. Everything you've heard, everything you've seen until now, wasn't just about a man named Manny Pacquiao. It was about you. Because this isn't just a story of overcoming, it's a mirror. You think you're watching the journey of a champion, but in truth, you're staring at the possibility of your own greatness. And the question burning in the back of your mind now is unavoidable. If he made it, why couldn't I? This isn't about boxing. It's not about the Philippines. It's not about belts, millions, or headlines. It's about a pattern, silent code that lives inside every human being who has ever dared to dream beyond their current reality. And that code says, You will start small. You will start doubted. You will be ridiculed. You will walk in darkness. You will doubt yourself. You will want to give up. But if you keep going, if you water the seed of your vision, if you persist even when the results don't come, if you trust the law of gestation, the law behind every real miracle, then you will bloom. Because that's exactly what Manny did. He planted when all he had was misery. He trained when all he heard was silence. He kept going when all he felt was pain. And when no one believed, he became the living proof that impossible is just the name we give to what hasn't had time to grow. He didn't win because he was special. He won because he was faithful to the process. And that changes everything. Because if it's a process, that means anyone can follow it, even you. So now that you know, there's no more room for excuses. No more room to wait for perfect conditions. You've seen the path. You've felt the calling. You've understood the code. And the only thing left is to act. Because your pain can become strength. Your lack can become power. Your faith can create movement. And movement with discipline can produce miracles. Yes, miracles. Not in the magical sense, but in the real sense, the built sense. Miracles that are born from the invisible commitment you cultivate in silence. That's what made Manny Pacquiao a legend. And that's what can make you a revolution. Now that you know the story, now that you've felt every punch, every tear, every silent step of this journey, only one question remains. And you? What will you do with this? Manny Pacquiao wasn't a miracle of luck. He was the result of a daily choice. He was living proof that the world doesn't reward desire. It rewards planting. While many chased applause, he chased evolution. While others wanted quick results, he embraced the wait. Because he knew that anything that grows too fast dies shallow. But what grows with roots survives any storm. And that's exactly what the law of gestation teaches us. True success doesn't scream. It germinates, it waits, it strengthens in silence, to bloom at the right moment when you are ready. And now, it's your turn. You don't have to be a boxer. You don't have to live in the Philippines. You don't have to go through the same pain. But you do have to decide. You have to choose to plant, even if no one sees, even if no one believes, even if everything around you says it won't work. Because in the end, it's not conditions that shape giants, it's decisions, it's the silent commitments, it's the days when you keep going, even when you see no reason to. What made Manny Pacquiao a champion wasn't the ring, it was life. It was what he did when no one was watching. And this is your chance to stop watching stories and start writing your own. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and understand this. You are the seed. You are the soil. You are the gardener. And you will be the harvest. The only thing separating you from your greatness is time, is faith, is discipline, is invisible action, repeated 1,000 times in silence. So go, rise, train, pray, build, even if it hurts, even if it takes time. Because one day, the whole world will stop to see what you've become. And on that day, you won't be surprised, because you will know. It was all planted in the dark, with faith, with purpose, with courage.